What's up everyone, we're going to be going through the best NBA player props on Prizepicks today. Now I did want to show you the results from yesterday's picks from my exclusive Discord group, and as you guys see we actually got 23 picks correct, which was absolutely insane. Now a lot of you comment wanting to see how many I got wrong, and I thought I'd show you in today's video. We only got 2 picks wrong and got 23 right, which is a 95% win rate. Yes guys, you heard that right, 95% win rate. So we're on a huge hot streak, but if you want to get a 95% win rate and get 23 picks right like me, win more bets and receive the best picks from some of the best bettors in the world for less than a cup of coffee, you can access the exclusive Discord and meet some of the best sport bettors in the game by joining my Patreon. Should be linked down below in the description. Once you join, you'll have complete access to the Discord and can start winning more bets today. So make sure to join my Patreon using the link in the description. And here's one of our members who just signed up and won himself $1,000 just yesterday, and another member who won $875 for the 6th day in a row since joining my Discord. So guys, if you want to win big money like our members, the link will be in the description, so go join the Patreon to have access to the Discord group, and I will be continuing to upload every single day on this channel the best bets and props, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my daily uploads. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the shout outs of the day. So shouts out to Justin Lott, who commented let's go on my last video. Shout out to also Bobby Duck, who said let's get it, and then E-Rock Currency, who said man, I'm finna win today, new day, new bread loaf. So shouts out to them, and if you do want to be in the running to get a shout out in the next video, all you have to do is comment and like on this video and you can be in the running to win a shout out for tomorrow's vid. Alright, so let's get straight into the first pick. When it comes to these picks, I'm not saying to chuck all of them into a parlay and hope for the best. Pick and choose the ones that you like and the ones that work best for you. So the first pick we're going to be talking about is a great player, and that is none other than D'Angelo Russell. Now D'Angelo Russell has been traded mid-season, but he has been doing well for the Brooklyn Nets now, and this one is a great pick for 2.5 3 points made, and this one is for less. Now, when we look at D'Angelo Russell, we've actually seen him go on the under in 4 out of the last 5 games, which is fantastic to see. Now, when we look at those 5 games, we see that they faced off against Golden State Warriors on March 7. He only had 1 3-pointer in that game. Then faced off against Charlotte Hornets, where he had a bit of a hot streak going for 4 3-pointers. Moving on from that, faced off against the LA Lakers on the March 11 and only had 2 3-pointers. Then March 14, faced off against Chicago Bulls at 0, and then faced off against Boston Celtics on March 16th and also only had 1 3-point made. So he's definitely been more on the under than he has been on the over, and that is a telltale sign to us why we do like the under for this one. Now, when we look at someone like D'Angelo Russell, they do face off in this next matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. Now, when we look at the Atlanta Hawks, we do see an interesting story, as Atlanta Hawks do rank when it comes to 3-point percentage allowed. They do actually rank 28th. Now, moving on into 3-point attempts allowed, we also do see that the Hawks rank 16th. And then 3 points made allowed, we do see Atlanta Hawks rank, interestingly, 26th. So they rank pretty mid to low tier in all 3 categories. However, the reason why we do like the under still for this situation here is that Atlanta Hawks do a fantastic job at restricting 3-pointers to their guard position, and we definitely see someone like D'Angelo Russell struggling against this. Atlanta have done a fantastic job, and when we look at Brooklyn Nets as well, we also see an interesting story, because when it comes to Brooklyn Nets, they aren't really in the playoff picture per se. They do have a record of actually 22-45, so they are looking to tank, and because of that, we definitely could see that affect D'Angelo Russell and Brooklyn Nets, because Brooklyn are looking to tank. They may take off D'Angelo Russell early, which can definitely decrease the chance of D'Angelo going over on this line, which is why we do like the under. Now, they do face off against the Hawks. Now, the Hawks are 7th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 32-35, so they do have a better record, and they are chasing a spot in the actual NBA playoffs as well. So we are expecting Atlanta to play very hard. D'Angelo Russell and the Brooklyn Nets, we actually see a different story there. And when we look at his average over the last 5, his average is only 1.6, so significantly below this line. Now, when we look at D'Angelo Russell as well, when we look at his face off against Atlanta in the past, it was with the LA Lakers, and this was on the 6th. And on top of that, when we look at his 3-pointers made, he only made 2. So he was under in that game, and this was for for a team of the LA Lakers. So definitely a different story coming into this next matchup. And we definitely see him kind of having a similar result, or same result at that, going on the under there. So D'Angelo Russell for 2.5 3-pointers made for less, I think is a great pick. Now getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about none other than Wendell Carter Jr. So Wendell Carter Jr., great player as we all know, and this one is for none other than 7.5 rebounds, and this one actually is for less. Now, when we look at Wendell Carter Jr., we've actually seen him go on the under in 4 out of the last 5 games, which is great to see. And they do face off against none other than the Cleveland Cavaliers in this next matchup. Now, looking at this matchup, we do see Wendell Carter Jr. on March 7th starting off, faced off against Chicago, only had 5 rebounds there. Then faced off against Milwaukee Bucks, where he only had 4 rebounds. Then he was able to pick it up a notch on March 11 against Houston Rockets, and he had 12 rebounds. Then moving on from that, faced off against New Orleans Pelicans, where he had 4 rebounds, and then finished off against Minnesota Timberwolves, where he only had 2 rebounds. So we definitely have seen, Wendell Carter Jr. go on the under significantly throughout, the last 5 games. His average over the last 5 is also 5.4, so significantly below this line as well. Now they do have themselves an interesting matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, when we look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team, Cleveland do rank 10th when it comes to rebounds allowed. So it's interesting there because when we look at Cleveland, we do see that not only do they rank 10th in rebounds allowed, but they also do a fantastic job at restricting rebounds to the big man position. Whether that's center or power forward, they do a great job on both positions, and that is where we usually see Wendell Carter Jr. play. Now, we definitely have seen his usage rate fall quite a bit, and the fact that they do face off against a tough Cleveland Cavaliers team, we definitely see it being a bit of a struggle for Wendell Carter Jr. here. Now, when we look at this matchup as well, what we also do see is that, Cleveland Cavaliers are a very slow-paced team. Orlando Magic are also a pretty slow-paced team. But what we have seen time and time again is that when it actually comes to these teams, slow pace, and because of that, it definitely will affect someone like Wendell Carter, especially since Cleveland do a great job at restricting rebounds. So we definitely do like the under for this one. All signs really do point towards the under for this one. Now, when we look at Wendell Carter so far this season facing off against Cleveland, we saw them actually face off on the 25th of February. So very recent, and he only had 6 rebounds in that matchup. So, he actually missed the line by 1.5. We see a similar situation happening in this game, and we see him going on the under here. Now, on top of that, when we look at what the bookies are saying, the bookies also have him favored for the under as well. So that works out in our favor there. So for that reason, we are definitely liking the under, and we definitely see it happening in this matchup. So Wendell Carter Jr., 7.5 rebounds for less, I think is a great pick. Now, getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about Jaden McDaniels. So, Jaden McDaniels, great player as we all know, and this one is a fantastic one for actually points, for 14.5 points, and this one actually is for less. Now, when we look at Jaden McDaniels from the Minnesota Timberwolves, we see them face off against none other than the actual Utah Jazz. Now, he's gone on the under in 2 out of the last 5, and looking at those 5 games, he faced off against Charlotte, where he had 29 points. Moving on from that, faced off against Miami Heat, where he had 13 points. Then, on March 10th, faced off against the San Antonio Spurs, where he had 16 points. After that, faced off against Denver Nuggets, where he had 16 points. And then Orlando faced off against them, and he had also 11 points. So, interesting there. Some of the games, he has gone on the over, but just slightly above this line. But when we look at this matchup, they face off against Utah Jazz. Now, Utah Jazz do rank 28th when it comes to points allowed. But the reason why we do like the under still for this situation here is that Utah Jazz actually do a fantastic job at restricting, points from the actual forward position. So we definitely see someone like Jaden McDaniels actually struggling in this matchup due to the fact that they have done a fantastic job time and time again when it actually comes to, restricting forwards from points. And we definitely see that having a huge effect there. So for that reason, we do very much like, the under for this situation here. When we look at Minnesota Timberwolves and the Utah Jazz matchup, although that, Utah are a very poor team, we are expecting a blowout situation here. And if it is a blowout situation, the reason why that is a big deal for us is that if it is a blowout situation, we could see Jaden McDaniels actually sit out early coming into this game. And with Utah Jazz looking to tank as well, we could definitely see them, kind of bail out very, very early, which can definitely have a huge effect there. So for that reason, we do very much like, the under for this situation here. Now, when we look at someone like Jaden McDaniels over, the last games facing off against Utah this season, we actually did see them face off against, each other on the 30th of January. So kind of recent as well there. And we actually saw him get only 4 points in that matchup. So he only had 4 points, but also had 31 minutes. So it's not like he got injured or anything like that. He played the game properly, or played the same amount of minutes that we usually see, and he did only get 4 points in that matchup. Then on the recent matchup on the 28th, he did have 20 points. Now with that game, there were a couple of star players or main players for Minnesota that were out. So that's one of the reasons why we have actually seen someone like Jaden McDaniels be able to score during that matchup. But we definitely see a different story, as Minnesota is expected to play most of their players, or most of their star players, coming into this matchup. So for that reason, we definitely see that first game on the 30th, we definitely see more of a result like that coming into this one. And especially with Jaden McDaniels, yes, his average over the last 5 is 17. So we are going a little bit against the grain here, but when you look at what the bookies are saying, the bookies also have been favored for the under as well. So that works out in our favor there. So for that reason, definitely keep an eye out for the under for Jaden McDaniels here. So Jaden McDaniels, 14.5 points for less, I think is a great pick. So as you all know, I do want to get these picks out to you as soon as possible, but Prizepicks is delayed with some of their lines. So here are a couple of players you should definitely watch out for when their lines drop. So the first player we're going to be talking about is none other than Franz Wagner. So as we all know, Franz Wagner, great player for the Orlando Magic, and he's done a fantastic job so far this season because he's been averaging 24.4 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.7 assists, while also shooting 46.4% from the field. So he's done a fantastic job for the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic do have themselves a great matchup against none other than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, it is going to be an exciting game. When we look at both teams, we see that the Cleveland Cavaliers do have the #1 spot in the East, where they have a record of 56-10. And on top of that, when we look at Orlando are ranked currently 8th in the Eastern Conference, but they do have a record of 31-37. So Cleveland have already clinched a playoff spot, while Orlando Magic on the other hand are still trying to fight for a playoff spot as games go by. But when we look at the matchup, Cleveland Cavaliers do actually rank when it comes to points allowed. They do rank 9th. Moving on into assists allowed, we see that the Cavaliers do rank very well as well, as they also rank 8th there. And then rebounds allowed, the Cleveland Cavaliers do rank 10th. So Cleveland ranked very good in all 3 categories, and for that reason we do very much like the under for this situation here for someone like Franz Wagner. Now Wagner is a great player, do not get me wrong, but with Cleveland Cavaliers, who do a great job at restricting points, rebounds, and assists, we definitely see someone like Wagner going on the under here. When we look on a per position basis, Cleveland also do a great job at restricting, points, rebounds, and assists to the small forward position as well, which is what Wagner is, and that can definitely be taken into consideration when it comes to this game. Now, when we look at Franz Wagner over the last or most recent games, he's had a little bit of a less, sort of usage rate out there on the floor. He only had 16 points in his last matchup, and also only 4 assists and 4 rebounds in that one. So he was under all of his averages in that game. He had another game where he only had 15 points, 5 assists, and also 7 rebounds. So did pretty well on rebounds and assists, but not too well on points. And we think that his usage rate has definitely settled just quite a bit. He hasn't really had any blowout or, hot streak type games as of recent, and we definitely see that being taken into consideration coming into this matchup. Now, when we look at both teams as well, Orlando Magic and Cleveland Cavaliers, both are very, very slow-paced teams, but what we have noticed time and time again is that Cleveland Cavaliers do a fantastic job at actually slowing down, the actual pace of a lot of faster-paced teams compared to them. So we actually expect Orlando Magic to actually slow down to Cavaliers' pace, so we could see less volume and also, just less pace from the Orlando Magic coming into this matchup. So we definitely see those things taking a huge effect in this matchup, and it's a big reason why we do like the under for this one. Now, if there was one to focus on, I wouldn't really focus on any. I think points, rebounds, and assists, Cleveland had the capability to restrict them in all three facets, so definitely keep an eye out for the under there. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant, great player, as we all know, and has done a very good job for his Phoenix Suns team. Now, he's been averaging so far this season 26.7 points, which actually ranks him 6th, 6.1 rebounds, and also 4.3 assists, while also shooting 52.8% from the field. And the Phoenix Suns have themselves a great matchup against none other than the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, when we look at the Los Angeles Lakers, starting off with them, we see that they have a record of 40-25. They currently rank 5th in the Western Conference and haven't actually clinched a playoff spot just yet. So still on the low side when it comes to that. Now, on top of that, when we look at the Phoenix Suns on the other side, we do see a different story. Phoenix Suns do actually rank 11th when it actually comes to the Western Conference, and they have a record of 31-36. So they potentially could still make the playoffs. They are definitely pushing more towards the play-in, while also Lakers are still trying to fight and clinch a playoff spot as well. So on both sides of both of these teams, both are still fighting for a playoff spot, so that's interesting there. But when we look at the Lakers points, rebounds, and assists allowed, we do see a very different story. The Los Angeles Lakers, when it comes to points allowed, do rank 11th, so they rank very, very well there. Moving on into assists allowed, we see that the Lakers rank a little bit lower as they rank 21st. And then, when we look at rebounds allowed, we see that the Lakers do rank pretty well as they rank 8th when it comes to rebounds allowed. So when it comes to someone like Kevin Durant, although, Lakers do rank very, very well, pretty much in all three categories, we still do like the over for someone like Kevin Durant. A big reason being is that when it comes to Los Angeles Lakers, they do very much struggle at actually restricting points, rebounds, and assists to the forward position. And with LeBron expected to be out for this game, we definitely see their defensive presence slowing down just a little bit. Now, although when it comes to LeBron and some other injuries and other people that are sitting out for this Lakers game, it is still all expected, but even if they do still end up playing, we still do like the over for someone like Kevin Durant coming into this matchup. Now, when it comes to someone like KD, I would definitely focus a little bit more on points and assists. Even though he does get quite a lot of rebounds, we still do like points and assists just a little bit more due to the fact that Lakers on a per position basis do a poor job or more poor job at restricting, points and assists to the forward. So we definitely see someone like KD being able to take advantage of this and going on the over there. But like I mentioned, definitely keep an eye out for points and assists. Now, when we look at KD over the last couple of games, he has been able to put on quite a show in a couple of matchups. He's coming off a game where he had 22 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. He also had another 35-point game against Memphis Grizzlies, where he also had 5 assists and 5 rebounds, and another matchup against Denver where he had 29 points. So we all know what KD is capable of doing. KD is just a fantastic scorer, high volume scorer at that, and we definitely see him being able to take advantage of this weak Lakers team when it comes to defending the forward position. So for that reason, we do definitely like, the over for this situation here coming into this matchup. So getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about Rudy Gobert. So as you all know, Rudy Gobert, fantastic player for none other than the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have themselves a very, very good matchup. Because when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, they do face off against the Utah Jazz. Now, as you all know, Minnesota Timberwolves are continuing to push for a playoff spot. Right now, they do actually rank 7th when it comes, to the Western Conference rankings. So they are still in the playoff picture. picture. They are in the play-in picture, however, and they are trying their best to actually get out of that. And on top of that, when we look at Utah Jazz on the other side, they do have a record of 15-52. So it is a bit of an interesting one because it seems that they are out of the playoffs. They are looking to tank. And, they're trying to get a high draft pick at this point. So this is going to be a very interesting game. Now, when we look at Rudy Gobert, so far this season, he has been averaging 11.1 points, 10.4 rebounds, which actually ranks him 8th, 1.8 assists, while also shooting 65.5% from the field, which actually ranks him 5th as well. So when it comes to Rudy Gobert, definitely does put up some good numbers, especially in the points and rebounding department. And when we look at the Utah Jazz, we do see that Utah do rank 28th when it comes to points allowed, so very, very low there. They also rank 28th when it comes to assists allowed, and then rebounds allowed, they actually rank a little bit better as they rank 11th. Now, when we look at this matchup, we do actually, however, like the over for someone like Rudy Gobert coming into this matchup. Now, a big reason being is that Utah Jazz do rank low in every single category besides rebounds. Now, the reason why we still do like the over for someone like Rudy Gobert in the rebounding department is that when it actually comes to, Rudy Gobert, he is a center, and Utah Jazz actually do a very, very poor job at restricting points, rebounds, and assists to the center position. So we definitely see someone like Rudy Gobert being able to take advantage of this and going on the over here. We also are expecting Utah Jazz with John Collins is expected to be out for this game. Now, it is, most likely he is going to be out. Maybe that does change just before tip-off, and if it does, we still do like the over for someone like Rudy Gobert. But as it stands, John Collins is out, and that's definitely going to have a huge effect on Utah Jazz's defense. Also, on top of that, we are also expecting Utah Jazz not to play the same type of basketball that they usually play. They are in the second half of the season. They are looking to tank, and they are trying to get a very high draft pick. So we could see a very different defensive strategy from this Utah Jazz team, which should lead to the over for someone like Rudy Gobert, who does play that center position, and on top of that, also has a pretty high usage rate in the points and rebounding department. Now, I would definitely focus a little bit more on points and rebounds. I highly doubt that he is going to have a line out for the assist. I definitely don't really see that happening. I think points and rebounds is definitely where you're going to see a lot more usage rate from Rudy. Now, rebounds is definitely a big one you want to focus on, but I think overall we should see Rudy Gobert go in the over in this matchup, as when we look at Utah Jazz as well, they are a very, very fast-paced team. Timberwolves, on the other hand, are not really the fastest-paced team out there, but what we have seen time and time again is that Utah Jazz do a fantastic job at actually speeding up slower paced teams. So we could see Rudy Gobert and this Minnesota Timberwolves team play with a little bit more, pace than they usually are used to, a little bit more volume than we usually see. So for that reason, we are sticking to the over for this one. So keep an eye out for Rudy Gobert's line. Focus on points and rebounds, but keep an eye out for the line. If it is under his averages, then definitely look to go on the over. Now, getting into the next player, we're going to be talking about none other than Ivica Zubac. So, as you all know, Ivica Zubac, great player, as we all know, has been playing fantastic, not only just for, the LA Clippers, but has just had himself a great season so far. Now, when we look at actually the matchup that they do face off against, the LA Clippers do have themselves an interesting matchup against the Charlotte Hornets. So, Charlotte Hornets, as we all know, very, very interesting team. Now, the Charlotte Hornets do actually have a pretty poor record. They do actually have a record of 17-49, so not really the greatest record there. And we definitely see someone like, Ivica Zubac being able to take advantage of that. But before we get into it, when we look at LA Clippers as well, we see LA Clippers rank 8th, so they are in that playoff contention, and they are continuing to try to push for a, spot in the playoffs. Their record of 37-30, ranking 8th in the actual Western Conference, and then Charlotte Hornets on the other side ranked 14th in the Eastern Conference. So it's definitely interesting to see the difference between those two. Now, when we look at someone, like Ivica Zubac, we've seen so far this season him do a fantastic job, averaging 16.2 points, which ranks him 62nd, 12.4 rebounds, which actually ranks him 4th, 2.5 assists, and also shooting 62.5% from the field. So, he ranks 6th in that court, which is fantastic to see. Now, they do face off against none other than Hornets. And when we look at Charlotte Hornets, we see a very interesting story, as when we look at points allowed, Charlotte Hornets do rank 15th. Moving on into assists allowed, we do see that the Charlotte Hornets rank 15th there as well. And then rebounds allowed, we also do see Charlotte rank 21. So, as you guys see, when it comes to a team like Charlotte Hornets, they rank pretty mid-tier in all 3 categories. And for that reason, we definitely see someone like Ivica Zubac being able to take advantage of this and go on the over here. When we look at someone like Ivica Zubac, he does have a decent usage rate in all these departments. Now, I definitely would focus a little bit more on points and rebounds more than anything, due to the fact that when it actually comes to Ivica Zubac, he just definitely has a higher usage rate there. But on top of that, when we look at Charlotte Hornets, they are also a very, very fast-paced team. And since they are a very fast-paced team, what we are actually expecting in this matchup is that when we look at a team like Charlotte, they tend to actually speed up slower-paced teams. So what we are expecting is that when it actually comes to LA Clippers, they may see a little bit more volume, a little bit more than they're used to, which should lead to the over for this situation here. For someone like Ivica Zubac, who's not only just done a fantastic job, but is also coming off some pretty decent games. He's had a game where he had 26 points and 14 rebounds. Another matchup where he had 14 rebounds and 22 points. So he has been able to really be on a little bit of a hot streak as of lately. LA Clippers at times do have a little bit of injuries here and there, and it's definitely affected their game, but it's actually led to an increase in Ivica Zubac's usage rate out there on the floor. On top of that, Hornets also do a very, very poor job at restricting points, rebounds, and assists to the actual, LA Clippers center position. So because of that, since they do a poor job against the center position, we definitely see someone like Ivica Zubac being able to take advantage of this. So with all these things being said, we definitely do like Ivica Zubac. I think all the signs really do point towards the over, and I would definitely focus a little bit more on points and rebounds, especially for someone like Zubac. We doubt that there is going to be an assist line coming up. We think it's definitely going to be, or majority going to be, actually, the points and rebounds. So definitely keep an eye out for that.